I've done in person. The last one was virtually, so this is a bit of a novelty for myself, albeit at the end of my second term. So it shows the strange times in which we are. Just to let you know that this, whilst is being chaired by the Mayor of the Town Council, is a community, a town meeting. And any councillors that are here present in the meetings are here as residents. This is a meeting for the town. Welcome, and thank you very much for coming. I'd like to acknowledge and thank those that are on the table and are going to be addressing us later today. I appreciate the sacrifice of their time. It's precious to them. I know it is. And do really appreciate them coming and supporting the community here. If we can go on to item 2, which is to approve minutes of the annual town assembly held on the 26th of May, 2021. Do we have any comments? Seems a long time ago.
Yeah.
No comments. Would anybody like to propose their acceptance? Vera Dale, and anyone like to second those? Ed Tyra, I think you got there quicker. And a show of hands for approval of the minutes. Thank you. Any objections? Thank you. Okay, they are approved. I'm not in the habit of keeping people here too long, and you know, a short meeting is almost as good as no meeting. So we'll try and keep it brief. It's now my privilege to give the mayor's report for the last year. And one thing I would like to do is acknowledge first and foremost that at the end of my second term now, and reflecting on what's happened, what a wonderful community we have. So many people are willing to give of their time, sacrifice, care for others, and absolutely just go the extra mile, out of the headlines, away from the spotlight, just willing to do the right thing because it's the right thing and they care enough about the people around them. That I feel an absolute privilege to have been in this position for the time that I have. It's also at the end of this second term that I've had a time to reflect and take a moment to myself. Not that I have too many, I should say. With 8 children and a business and this role as well, my time is also very precious. So it's just taken time out to think about what's happened. It seems remarkable to me, the significant difference between the council now and the day I inherited it. For those who were in the meeting when that happened, you will understand what I'm saying for anybody who witnessed it. And I'd like to thank all and everyone that's contributed towards that. It's me a significant privilege to see the difference. And that difference has been in a few areas. I'm just going to touch on a few of those areas. First and foremost, it's the relationship internally. Focusing internally on the town council, it is my privilege to report that following a period of transition, we have now appointed a fantastic new clerk who is part of a wonderful team that we have. We have great staff. We really do feel privileged and appreciate working with and for all they do. It is just fantastic to see what they do and to see the difference it makes for staff and councillors to cooperatively work together in a shared vision of what we can do and move forward. It's just something that has, in my time, been the most dramatic change of the scene. So I'd like to personally thank each and every one of the staff and councillors to facilitate and allowing this cooperative action to take place. It's something that should be a given, but from my experience with other councils and the calls I get from some of those, it's a rarity. So thank you. I'd also like to acknowledge that the progress we've made in becoming more transparent. Something that we've set out at the beginning, something that we've been far more inclusive of and open with the community. Another great area that we've done as part of the root and branch or branch and root review that we've had of the town council is we've grasped the nettle of historic things that haven't really been focused on for some time. We felt it was our duty to leave the council and the operations of the council in a better position than when we inherited them. It wasn't just about the people, it was also about the policies and processes. We've had significant changes to standing reviews, to standing orders, and to our policies as we run the council, and we will continue to do so as we seek ever more efficient and appropriate ways to operate and engage with and work cooperatively with those people that we need to. And I think one of the things and the great blessings of this we've seen towards the end of it is, rather than now looking inwards, rather than navel gazing and sorting out internal problems, we've seen, particularly in the last 6 months, a transition to us moving our gaze to the community and outwards. We've set our house in order and are now in a position where we can make a significant difference to our community, which is why we became councillors in the first place. It's why so many serve in the community. If you are not making a difference, you wonder why you're doing what you're doing. And in a voluntary role, you do question the necessity of you sacrificing time if you don't feel you're making a difference. So now we're starting to see the first fruits of those labours that we are putting into the various projects, which we'll discuss in just a moment. The other area that I felt was significant was bridge building. It was perhaps no surprise with the internal fractions that we had within the council, that we also had fractions with the external key stakeholders as well, with most communication channels being significantly reduced or non-existent, and certainly not cooperative. I would say now that we're in a position that we are having friendly and positive conversations with all of the key stakeholders with which the council has the privilege of dealing with. And that will be added to shortly with an informal community forums that we hope to host quarterly as a town council. The principle being, we want to support good people doing good things within our community, rather than take over any initiatives that good people are doing. We want to support what they're doing and perhaps find other like-minded people who are doing similar things or are willing to assist and create synergy within the community. That we don't work against each other, but we collaboratively focus on the collective good that we have already gained, but can increase in the future. So we are going to be having quarterly informal meetings with community groups and key stakeholders, where we get a chance to just talk about what we're doing and see if there's some things that there's an overlap or an opportunity to improve upon, or to work together, or to affect more people. So that's going to be happening shortly. So we're looking forward to that part. In communicating and building bridges, we have a new website. This has been spoken about. I appreciate it some time, but it is very close to coming live. And that will help with newsletters to effectively engage with the community at large as well. We recognise that communication is a key part of what we do. There's so much good already being done, but there are so few people aware of it. And I feel just helping people have an insight into what's happening will positively affect their feelings towards the community, the living space, and others within that community. We also have a number of projects happening at the moment. This is probably the bit that I got involved in most by being a councillor, being part of the neighbourhood plan group as we initially started it. We are starting to see the fruition of these plans, this neighbourhood plan, the ambition of the neighbourhood plan, whether it be through the Sustainable Urban Extension, the SU, as it's often called, with the additional houses, which will be focusing on sports provision, the linear park, sustainable housing, and other key facilities within the community which are sorely lacking, we're starting to see a future which realises on the dreams and aspirations of so many of us and the hours lost in the preparation of the neighbourhood plan. It's a real joy to see that this is starting to happen. We're also seeing movement on increased healthcare facilities. News hopefully shortly on this publicly. But these things are progressing, which have been the priorities. However, we do need to focus on one area, and we're working with Brecon Council in conversations at the moment to identify what of the black holes that we have within the portfolio of the ongoing work. And we appeal to the community to assist us in this. And that is to do with employment, both employment land and the nature of employment locally, and whether it links to the education as well. We're very privileged to have the executive principal, Neil Shane, here tonight as a key part of that. We do not want the town with the additional houses to have, yes, a linear park and better healthcare facilities, but no jobs or no additional jobs. We feel it's part of a balanced approach to growth, part of the sustainability, the shorter travel and everything else we need to focus on. Because we don't want this town to become a commuter town. We want to keep its vibrancy and have livelihoods that people can aspire to within our communities, rather than feeling they have to go to another county or another town to achieve. We need that here. And that's where we're going to continue asking for the community's help in achieving this, perhaps last part of the focus of the AMP that has yet to materialise. We're also doing, with the Environmental Committee, as well as other means, those parts which are within our sphere of influence ourselves. For instance, if we have a park that's our responsibility and we have the budget to do something where there's a need, we are trying to focus on those things. We had a meeting at 6 o'clock before this meeting this evening, where in principle, the agreement for the new wheel park or skate park, as people will refer to it, no doubt, which increases the facilities for our youth, but also adds to the recreation ground that we have within our community to make it a safe and also an appealing place to be, that we want to cater for our community. And there are a number of projects that we're seeing going forward on these. That is but one. If you want to see the number of projects, tune into the Environmental Committee and you'll get an idea of the scope of the pipeline projects that are in there that we can do for ourselves. So we're not sitting on our hands. We are doing for ourselves what we can do. And then we're appealing to key stakeholders and others that we hope to influence positively the community going forward for those things that we cannot, but have an aspiration for. The community might be tired of the endless consultations that seem to have happened recently, whether it be for the zoo or another one that's been done in Hatch and Brecon. But what I wanted to do is just to let you know that when your voice is raised, we are trying to use it. We are trying to utilise it and make it part of our collective cause as we move forward. So we're doing council, an outward-looking council, a council that seeks to make a real difference in the lives of its residents. We have achieved a lot in this period, but there's plenty of work to do, and we need to pursue that work going forward. Finally, just express my gratitude once more for the unsung heroes that serve in our community, that may never be a councillor and may never be known to me personally, but make a difference for the individuals that live within it, particularly through another challenging year. We may yet have another challenging year ahead of us, so it's important we maintain our focus, our outward looking, and really trying to make a difference. Thank you. We'll now hear from Reverend Matthew Jackson, for the charities report. After that, rather than me announcing it every time and cutting off halfway, he's also our first guest speaker. So just take a breath.
I'll be forced.
Carry on.
Thank you. If I give you the official report then of Attleborough Town Land Charity, known as Attleborough Town Charities. In the year income, in the year to the 31st of December last year, the income from rents, deposits and investment portfolio managed by Barrett and Cook was £21,877 compared to £17,550 in 2020. The trustees granted £39,467 to individuals and groups serving the community of Attleborough during the year, compared with £11,467 in 2020 and £28,508 in 2019. The main criteria for individual applications are genuine need, the receipt of state benefits and residency in the town. And we would encourage organisations serving the people of Attleborough to apply on behalf of clients who meet these criteria to the Secretary, which is Mrs. P. Buttle at the Church Office at St Mary's. And I'd like to thank the trustees and the Treasurer who give freely of their time and expertise. Just on a personal note, you may have noticed that we gave away quite a lot more money than we received last year, but that's not always the case. Our real difficulty is connecting with people who are in genuine need. Because if we put up a poster and said, would you like some money? People who came forward are probably not those who are in greatest need in the community. So all of those of you who are involved in various groups and organisations in the town, if you come across people in genuine need, do send them our way. And we look favourably on applications from groups as well. I think I need to give those. I've got bigger print for the next one. It was William Temple, who was Archbishop of Canterbury in the 1940s, who famously said, "The Church is the only society that exists for the benefit of those who are not its members." As Christians, we're inspired by the example of Jesus to care for those in our community. But you're not here for a sermon tonight. So I'll concentrate on telling you a bit about what we do in the community and what we hope to do in the future. Some of these things, of course, are more churchy than others. A church has stood on the site of St Mary's since Saxon times. And today the church building hopes to be a centre for the community as well as a place of pilgrimage, worship and prayer. And St Mary's is open every day during the day. And it still surprises me how many people who I meet have never been into the church. So if you haven't been, then do go in during the day and have a look around, because everyone's welcome to explore and to sit in the quiet or to come and join us for worship. Our main Sunday service is at 10 o'clock and it's a gathering place for our Christian community. And there's always a warm welcome for those who join us and coffee afterwards. And the coffee often goes on longer than the service as people like to have an opportunity to catch up with their friends. Our well-respected choir is a friendly group of amateur singers who meet on a Friday night and sing on Sundays. There's no audition and new members are always welcome. Pre-COVID, we made regular trips out to sing in cathedrals around the region. And there is the odd trip to the pub after the rehearsal or after service too. But more about music later on. If people can't get to church, they're not forgotten. We visit widely in the community and have a list of people who we phone regularly. During the first days of the lockdown, we were phoning about 160 people a week between us on the staff team, just to keep in touch with people. We regularly take communion to those who ask. We now have a YouTube channel and attract an online congregation which comes from Attleborough and from across the country. Because of this, I've even recently chatted to a group from a university in Wisconsin who wanted to know about the Church of England. There always seems to be food of one sort or another at church events. Like any other family, we enjoy the opportunities to eat together. And throughout the year, there are meals together, including the Shrove Tuesday pancake party, the Christian Aid lunch, Lent lunches, quiz and chips, and a harvest quiz. We have men's groups and ladies groups too, who share time together and go out for meals, although some of these things, of course, have been paused in the last couple of years. Our community lunch is fortnightly on Fridays, and it offers those who often eat alone the chance to share a meal with other people. Good quality food and enjoyable company is provided for a small charge. There's even a chance to have a flutter on the raffle. And we're currently looking for new people to come to this, if you know anyone who is suitable and interested. We also welcome large numbers of the community for refreshments at the Christmas Carnival, our summer fete, and we're providing refreshments at the summer carnival on the Wreck this year too, and also holding a Jubilee picnic, which you can find out more about, no doubt, in the coming weeks. Church is a good place to meet people. Plenty of church community groups use the hall space. The church and the hall are a regular hub for the community and a place where new friendships are formed as people meet one another on a regular basis. The Attleborough branch of the Mothers' Union is one of the more churchy things and is involved in the work of the Mothers' Union locally and around the world. Members meet regularly to enjoy hearing speakers and to socialise together. And again, new members are always welcome. Attleborough Day Centre, which you've probably heard of, is an independent charity and open for older people on Mondays, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, 51 weeks of the year in the church hall. Service users enjoy each other's company, have a good lunch, and they can even use the specialist bathroom to have a bath if they can't get into the bath at home. There's a befriending service too, working in and around the town. You can always drop in on a Saturday morning between 10 and 11:30, and you'll find coffee and chat in full swing in the church hall. You can come enjoy a cup of tea or coffee and some homemade cake. You can also browse the stalls of the many charities who work in the town and around and who use the space for fundraising. Many people come here to meet new friends as well, to catch up with old ones and to share community news. Once a month at the moment, we're supplementing this with a craft market on Saturday mornings. I was on holiday in Clevedon near Bristol last summer and saw how good the craft market there was for the town. I thought it was worth exploring here too. We hope to bring more people into the town and to put on an event which benefits everyone. Next month, we've got nearly 20 stalls booked. For mums and their children, we have drop in and play in the hall on a Thursday morning. There you'll find toys and crafts for preschool children, coffee and cake, and a welcome for everyone of any age. It's a wonderful opportunity for people of different generations to mix together. People can stay for the whole morning or just drop in for a bit. Looking to the future, we've been awarded a grant from Youth Music to employ a music outreacher for 2 years as part of the church's music and building project. In partnership with Norfolk Music Hub, the new outreach worker will visit schools in and around Attleborough to bring musical engagement to the pupils and to share in the joy of music making. The project programme will also involve setting up and running free after-school music clubs for primary-age children. Although these events will be held in the church and in the hall, they are for the whole community. And in addition to free after-school choirs, there'll be a series of one-off music workshops run by external specialists. The focus we decided would be on singing because it's easily accessed by all children without great expense and has proven links to improve mental health and well-being. It was when we looked carefully at what events were taking place across Norfolk, we noticed that Breckland, and this part of Breckland particularly, is a bit of a black hole for anything to do with music. So this is the first phase in a project to work towards the church's vision of being a centre for musical excellence in this part of Norfolk. And so we're planning a series of high-profile concerts, which will in time lead to fundraising to restore the organ in the church to its former glory. We thought we would look big as well, so we commissioned a feasibility study recently, which I've got here. And we're also looking at extending the church hall to enable a wider access for members of the community, to restore and reorder the church building itself, and to make it environmentally sustainable and fit for a zero carbon society. We had our first pre-planning meeting with Breckland last week, which was very positive. Well, I hope you've been interested in this little jaunt through the life of St Mary's. The Church of England's current tagline is a Christian presence in every community. We are here for everyone, whether they come to church or not. We see ourselves very much as part of this community, part of its past, its present, and its future.
Thank you very much. I think I'm the only person that's ever been refused from an open choir ever in history. So thank you very much for the offer. I'll pass it. I do appreciate what you're doing, and I thought that'd be great to have an insight in just what one group is doing for the community. And there's so many more as well. We sometimes don't recognise what's really happening. And it's good to get a little insight into the greater good that is going on, the positivity and the real support that's happening. So thank you very much.
If you know anyone who's got 3 million quid back in
Thank you. Now you're going to hear from Sergeant Shelley, who's responsible for Atterbury.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. I don't propose that my speech be anywhere near as interesting as Reverend Jackson's, but I've been asked to come along and deliver just a short explanation about what my team and I do here in Atterbury and why they feel do. I apologise in advance. Should I speak really quickly, as my colleagues will vouch for, I do everything at a million miles an hour, including speaking, talking, and everything that I do. I'm incredibly excited, hence the apology.
Hopefully not driving.
No, only when the lights are on. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Sergeant Dan Shelley. I'm responsible for the Atterbury and Thetford, which recently changed their name to Local Policing Team, also seen as the LPT. We are responsible for being out there in the community, being public facing and high vis in the community amongst other proactive activities. My team here in Ascot consists of two, what we call as beat managers, which is one sat in the crowd today, is PC Andy London, and the second one who was on earlies as well today, along with Andy, PC Damien Wicks. These guys are responsible for Atterbury and the wider villages as well, so it's an incredibly large area, only two beat managers to say. And we are supported then by our response colleagues who come up from Thetford to respond to the light jobs, etc. And that is the team. Atterbury is growing, as we all know, and it's been widely mentioned here in the previous meetings. Unfortunately, at this time, my team is not growing to match that demand, so there is two. So whilst I'm not here to lock anything up, it's important that people understand the restrictions of which are placed upon us, and what we do wish we could do with more officers we would love to do. But what my team are doing is incredible with the resources that they have. So important also to manage people's expectations. Obviously, as COVID has changed, it changed our policing world as we know it. I've been in the police 14 years, 10 years as a police officer, 4 years as a PCSO in Windham. So I'm aware of safe neighbours and local policing team way of life. And COVID changed things completely for us. I joined the team just I'd say a few months before COVID really hit, and I've been on the team now coming up to 2 years in September. I came across from Response, where I've done the majority of my career. COVID changed policing in terms of we were guided, very strict about how we had contact with members of the public, which goes against the grain as a safe neighbour team or a policing team. It's very much we should be in the community at events such as this, and going through some of the events of which I'll talk about in a moment in the community. That was hampered significantly, and most things were done online, which just doesn't have the same impact or enjoyment for us than it does the meeting our community face to face and in person, which we feel is where we should be. So things are now changing progressively back to how they were, and my view as the sergeant on that team is to increase that and do everything we can to be as far as we can and as involved as we can in our community, which would be fantastic. And part of this isn't all of it, it's not a sales pitch. We would be incredibly keen to hear from anybody who could assist from a visit from us. As I was talking to them, some things we do a visit from us, an event which we could be at just to walk, even just to walk around and say hello to people, break down those barriers, to introduce who we are. And it's important we have those connections in our community so we can gather information, intelligence, and we can then really tackle the issues at the heart of the community without people telling us what's going on where. It's really, really difficult for us to then tackle. And I am a very proactive police officer, as are my team, so we like as much information we can get on issues in and around Asborough would be greatly received for us to then build a wider picture and tackle it. Just going to talk about a couple of things that we have been doing, and I say the royal we, because I say I cover Thetford and Attleborough, which are both equivalent busy towns. So I must take this opportunity to obviously thank my two females who do an incredible job at delivering what I'm about to explain. A couple of force-wide initiatives have been launched recently, I would suggest, since the release of COVID lockdown. One of the first one being a park walk and talk. So if any of you follow our Facebook or Twitter feeds, you'll see pictures of Andy going in and out of the town and with a hashtag of PWT. Although I'm not a massive understander of Twitter, but that's to notify that we're doing park walk talk. Ultimately, in layman's terms, it is old-fashioned football in areas that we should be out of the town centre, our villages, and the wider community. Like I said, from COVID changed policing, like you wouldn't believe, and being incredibly public facing, so limiting and risk assessing everything we go to, which goes against the grain, goes against what we do as humans. So therefore, this was introduced as a way to get our officers back out into the towns, back out for talking to people and engaging. So Park Walk Talk is a force-wide initiative, and that is continued, and that is monitored throughout the organisation. Again, an incredibly good initiative. And you'll see Andy and Damon about in the town, sometimes me. We have also incorporated that, I say we, Andy and some of the town councillors, which is a fantastic joint working that they've been out and put together, because not every issue that is approached to us we can deal with, and not every issue approached to the town council they can deal with. So it's a very good way. We walk around the parks in the summer and various other things, which obviously there's issues around the parks in terms of damage. We can investigate the damage, but we can't rectify the damage. The council can rectify the damage, but can't investigate the damage. So that way, it's, as an example, joint working is fantastic. And again, so we're doing park walk talk like that. So if there's any other organisations that want to just go for a walk around with us, any other members of the public, we will happily go for a walk around the town on a stay or anything to discuss any of your issues. So fantastic. Another force-wide initiative, which came as a result of the horrific incident in London with the police officer in London, was called Street Safe, which again is I believe, might be national, but it's certainly force-wide. So you can go onto the Norfolk Survey website, Google Street Safe, and if there's an area where you live that you do not feel safe in for whatever reason, you can put that on there, whether that be street lighting, whether that be antisocial behaviour abuse, or drug misuse, anything like that. So that will come through to us as a team. We then conduct armed patrols specifically around areas which people highlight through Street Safe. Just a way of making people feel safe in the community. And it could be as simple as there's a street light not working, so it's really dark. Now go through to the relevant people to look to rectify that. Or if it's antisocial behaviour, that clearly comes to us to target armed patrols around people's submissions on the Street Safe. So that's another force-wide, if not national, maybe under a different term nationally, but an initiative that we're sort of actively pursuing. So again, I'm keen for anyone to use that, to search that if they wish to report anything in terms of being safe in the community, because that's what we are ultimately here for. Some more local things that Andy then doing. As many of you know, especially here, they do a coffee with a pot, which was today, I believe. So there was one today where open them up again and have that opportunity for people just to pop in and see the police. So that has been run for a number of years before I even joined the team, I believe. So that's another good scheme that has withstood the COVID lockdowns have come out the other side positively as well. Another thing that I pushed when I joined the team was in a police example, pop-up surgeries. So we're getting our beat managers to pop up in various places where people are naturally going to be to then have a conversation. Andy then tomorrow at Sainsbury's, not doing their shopping, just there for a couple of hours. People coming in to do their shopping. You wouldn't normally necessarily pick up the phone and call the police. We'll say, "Oh, can I just tell you this?" And it might seem really small to you, but to us that could be a key piece of information intelligence which matches something else we already know. Or then we could give you some advice which you wouldn't normally want to talk to us about, but we'd like to be bothered, so please do. But if you're walking in, just quickly grab a word. Then again, Andy and Damon have been doing those all across Attleborough and Arts, around villages, village shops, post offices in the town. And that's just another way of getting back out in that community following the lockdown, getting public to see us, speak to us, and tell us what's going on. As I mentioned previously, we've been doing, well, I say we, mainly Andy, has been doing some walkarounds with councillors in the town, just to discuss issues and just to be out there, again, people to approach. We've been working closely with various schools, including Attleborough High and other schools in our communities, just to rebuild that relationship with people, as the council quite rightly in their opening speech, in terms of we just want to rebuild all those relationships which took a hit, because it's all well and good us sending an email, but nothing beats face to face, popping and saying, like, "How are you?" And through COVID, everyone did their utmost to email out, speak to people, which doesn't have, in my view, the same design effect as popping in and saying hello. So we're starting to redo that. Again, lots of school visits, as you'll see from our social media, with our primary school, taking a police car, just standing there answering their questions and just breaking down those barriers so people understand we're not there to lock people, everybody up, just some, but we are there to help. So again, Andy's been doing it and leading the line with that, and they were at Old Buckingham Primary School today. And so it's again, anyone with any of the three schools, that's something that again during COVID times and up to very recently we were told we couldn't do. Now we can, so we are actively doing that here and in Bedford. I've been voted into one in Bedford, so I'll be standing at the front with lots of small children shouting at me at some point. Again, another thing which has been 6th of May is the next one for us, a little promotional pitch. We have a Safe Neighbourhood action panel, which is where we set our priorities for the next 3 months, which is open to the public. The public come along and speak to us and tell us what the issues are, and then we tackle them in a multi-pronged approach with our response colleagues, with our councils and various other agencies to help us. Next one is the 6th of May, 7 o'clock. Just anyone wishes to come along as a little promotional pitch. On the site, there's something more unusual / exciting. The Bedford and Attleborough Safe Neighbourhood team, the policing team, used to saying that, have access to 2 police quad bikes. They are the only quad bikes in the county. I think the only quad bikes probably in the eastern regions of police forces. There's not many at all, which is a unique piece of kit. We've secured funding for 2 more officers to be trained. Andy is trained. They've reluctantly let me get trained and another officer get trained. We've also secured funding for a trailer, because at the moment they are in the garage that limits our capability of bringing them up to Attleborough and villages, but we have now secured funding for a trailer, so we can now bring them into events in Attleborough and the surrounding villages and tackle any issues off roads in and around Attleborough again. So just an extra tool for us, an extra thing that will help us in tackling simple things like missing people who do across rough terrain. They can now be transported quite will be once the trailer comes comfortably across. So again, that's another development that sits within our portfolio as a Safe Neighbourhood team. So again, that's just something to bear in mind. Should you wish us to pop up at an event, we can bring them along just for kids to come see, people to see, just for some engagement. I didn't bring along any. I didn't think this was the kind of environment where you would be too keen and interesting to hear the stats and crime stats, which is what we as police love: stats, paperwork, anything like that. So should anyone wish to know any crime stats, if that's what they expected from me, if they let me know, I can certainly find them out for you and get them to you. But I felt this was more of an opportunity, really, to explain what Andy and Damon can do as a street managers, what I've been doing as a sergeant for your town, and just to offer an opportunity for you guys to know who we are, know how to get hold of us, and if there's anything that we can do for you as a group or as an individual, then just need to let us know, really. And that's where we are. All I would just say again, as it is with all organisations, especially in the public sector, we are incredibly busy. Not only we get roped into doing response work as well, because we, at the end of the day, we are police officers, so we are used. Our primary role is looking after Attleborough Thetford, but we are also used as response, and due to certain skills that we were trained in, we get sent all over the country, including Southern event in Scotland last year. So we are at points national resources. So we are doing our utmost in your town side and your utmost to thank Heaven to engage with you all. If there's anyone that wants us, then do let us know. But, hopefully I didn't speak too quick. That's probably the calmest I've ever spoken. So, my team will be shocked.
Thanks ever so much. We're going to allow conversation and questions after we've done the presentation. So just make a few mental notes if you want to come back and ask anybody on the panel again any questions. So on to the chat. Yeah, should we do a bit of a swap over because he needs to tell you so.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to think. Don McCall on technical support.
Which is that one down there?
It is that one
That
there.
laptop, yeah.
So let me get the laptop on. Rem for you. And also there's one right
Okay, thank you, and thank you for inviting me along tonight to present. I've been asked to concentrate on facilities. And of course, being a teacher, I only work on the blackboard, so I just thought I'd put it in context really. Attleborough High opened 67 as a secondary modern school, and so we're well past 50 years now. With only 4 head teachers, I'm proud to say that I'm only the 4th in those 50 plus years. So we've got a sort of tradition really of getting old and grey in the same job. But we've got a tradition of being longevity at a head teacher. It was built for 250 students. Somebody may well remember or connection with it like that. And we are now going up to 900 plus, quite a rapid rate. I suppose one of the first buildings that was built was that one there, which is the massive computing building. So that was added on. And then came the sports hall, which I'll go into much more detail about in a minute, and its present developments. We then, this is in my time now, I came in 2002, so just after that we put another building on, was called the Humanities Building, is now called the David Barton Building, after my deputy principal who died in service in 2014, so we've named it after him. But it's always had a plan to be a united and joined up school. In 2010, just after I took over the head teacher, I became increasingly frustrated that I was going home at 6 o'clock at night and the whole site was pretty much dark. And there was me thinking, actually, we've got such good facilities there that we could open up to the community and they could use. So we started and we put this together ourselves to put the idea of having a sports village. Note the date code, so there's some frustration in my presentation. We started in 2010 with one sports hall. and tennis courts. A company called Partner Leisure manage our shared use agreement on behalf of Breckland. They have it outside of school hours on weekends, basically. We went to them. They didn't have any interest in capital development, so we didn't want to make it any bigger. And we actually put together a brochure and put it out to all the biggest companies you can imagine, Valentine's, etc., to see if there was any interest. At the time, because we were a high school owned by the county, county council owned the land, but they were quite happy for us to do this. So in terms of the proposed situation, we're proposing that we increase our facilities to make this sort of sports village, but more in line with a shared use agreement, such that the community can come in the day, and we didn't just exclusively own it in the day. And we thought it was a good idea to put it on the school site, because obviously it's sustainable in terms of we've already got admin staff who can take bookings, we've already got caretakers who can clean up, we've got maintenance staff, etc. there as part of the school anyway. So at the time we went to Breckland, they did a feasibility study in the town. We did our own feasibility study. Norfolk County Council indicated that they were willing for this to go ahead. And the feasibility study at the time, 2010, threw up the fact that what would be good and what would be commercial is if we put in dance studios, community hall, wasn't in competition with Connaught Hall, just to clear that one up. A gym, a theatre, AstroTurfs, but there was no need in there in the feasibility study view of a swimming pool or squash courts. So we put this brochure together, as I've said, with sort of 4 main phases to it, which sort of increased all our facilities right on the back of Queen Square. There was the idea, so that it was accessible by the community. So 4 main phases, I've said. Stage 1 really was, stage 1 was to develop the playground. Stage 2 was to develop the sports itself. Stage 3, we knew at that time that Alphabet Infants, as was, were moving out. Rosecroft, as it is now, was being built. So a new primary school in the town was being built. And so we knew that we were going to inherit their playing field, which is right next to the sports hall. So we proposed that we would put a sort of AstroTurf on that for community use, and then another AstroTurf on our field if we moved our athletics track, which was the plan. So we sort of set about in blue sky thinking, really. We didn't know where we were going to get the money in terms of doing the 4 phases. So what would we do in those phases? That there is the existing sports hall as is at the moment. That is our 6th form block. And so we started to think, well, actually, if we joined the 2 up, you could put a building in between there. It's a 2-storey building. It could be quite substantial. And then lastly, our 6th form car park at the moment, we could have built some sort of theatre if it was required, etc. So it was very much not stepping on anybody's toes. What could we create on that site for the use of the community? The idea, obviously, that if we were going to use it, or the community was going to use it in the day, then I'm obviously responsible for safeguarding children. So we needed to make sure that we could come from one side and the community could come from the other side, the left-hand side being the Queen Square entrance there. But there was also, or there still is, room behind the area there for a road to go up to the 6th form car park, which we would give to the community, so that the community come from one side, we can the other, makes it obviously very safe. So that was the idea at the time. We also thought that in the subsequent blue sky figure in the plans, that we could, on the Queen Square side, put a sort of a better entrance, reception area. If it's 2-storey, it could have a cafe upstairs, which looks into the sports hall. So people like the boxing club could use it as an arena, etc., etc. We also have a corridor. Some of you've probably been in there, seen it on the ground floor. It would be quite easy to build up above that, and therefore you could have also a viewing gallery which could look into the sports hall, but also could look downwards onto the infant school field, where there could be an AstroTurf. So this was part of the brochure that we did. There was also a 2nd story, which basically fitted over that, which increased the area and also meant that there could be community rooms, dance, studio, theatre, etc. So that was the thinking at the time, that we would develop that area there. There was also some thinking that on the playground itself, if you develop some sort of hay shelter type roofing over the top of it, and it's been done in other communities, that we could floodlight it so that it could be used, the playground itself could be used as a multi-weather facility. And obviously the 3D pitch on the old Italy site was proposed at the time. So it was very much a community sports provision. That's why I got involved with the neighbourhood plan and sat in many meetings on the development group there late into the night, thrashing all that out. We decided in the neighbourhood plan that the high school site would be good for indoor sports and leisure provision, mainly for the reasons that I've said already, in the fact that you've got a guaranteed use there in the day of the school, but we've also got staff there, like caretakers, cleaning already employed. So, it wasn't going to stand there as a sort of white elephant, which could potentially fall over if it wasn't commercially viable. The school made it commercially viable. Part of my surprise in sitting on the neighbourhood plan group, I suppose, was the fact that people kept claiming we don't have tennis courts in the town. Well, we absolutely do. They are there, they're on the playground. They've got tennis nets on them now. So we went to part of the leisure and said, actually, you need to be a bit more commercial about this and recruit it and market it a bit better for the community use. That is still in production. In terms of the sixth form community provision idea, well, we knew, as I said, that we were getting the use of the infant school site, which just happens to be right next to the enterprise centre as was. So you've got a sort of high school, and then you've got what we would turn into a sixth form on the infant school site, and then you've got the upper age centre next door to that. But it meant that if we did develop the sports hall buildings, then we knew that we were going to displace our sixth form from their building. So we knew that we would need to move into the infant school site. The way that government funding works, unfortunately, though, is that there is no specific capital funding for sixth form. And so that part of it stalled a little bit. At that time, 2014, we chose to become an academy. So I chose with government to become an academy out of Norfolk County Council control. It just gave us a bit more ability to move it forward. And so we developed what we call the master plan. Master plan version 1 was then drafted in 2014 with Norfolk County Council, just because we left them, they weren't going to leave us on their own. And the original plan, therefore, was the school was going to develop in 2 phases. So it would go up to 1,100 students in the first phase, and then the last phase would be to develop it with a 300 place sixth form, taking it to 1,400 student space. So at the time in the master plan, all drawn up, all costed and all the rest of it, the idea was that we were basically going to take the buildings that we've got and infill in between those buildings to create this space for 1,100 students. And the original idea was that we were going to go onto the field to do a double height science block. And at the front, I don't know if you remember those horrible mobiles at the front, which we've now replaced, that was originally going to be phase 2. So phase 1, basically a big building there, double story science block, which sort of starts to create the round donut, if you like. And then phase 2 was going to be there over the front of the site. So subsequently to that, we became aware of the fact that we could go for a government grant. So that was the original visual of the front. It doesn't look like that now. Good partial remember what I'm talking about. And there was to be a new car park at the front. But we did become aware of this government grant, which was called Priority School Building Programme. And the idea of that was that schools, the government at the time thought it's no good having students in mobiles anymore for the 21st century, so we should have them in buildings. They did say brick, but they turned out to be brick anyway. So you get the idea. There was this grant that we went for and that we received. Horrible picture of me there with my arm out, looking a lot less grey than I am now. That's how long ago it was. And they always make you put your arms out, I don't know why. So because of that, we won the ability to put a building at the front of the site instead of the mobiles. So the phasing got changed. So phasing, well, phase 1 became this new reception block, which is now there, the art drama student block, And then the double-storey height science block on the field became phase 2. So basically the phasing was swapped. So in terms of phase 1 then, interestingly, in the building of phase 1, which we got this government grant for, we had actually to decant, and we did have to move into the old infant school, which I don't know if it works, didn't they? School, but anyway, they did leave it in a bit of a state. But Norfolk County Council did put some money in to refurb it, because they had to, because we had to basically move our art drama facility out, so that they could build on that site. So that was the idea, all done by CAD/CAM. I was a bit cynical, thinking, yeah, that looks nice, but it's not going to look like that. Hey presto, the wonders of technology and witchcraft, I suppose, it does look quite like that. And it was built in a factory in Ireland and arrived on a load of lorries, and came and it was a beautiful, lovely new building. Very welcome to come and have a look around if you wish to do so at any time. That's obviously the council at the front there showing it off. So we had this sort of front L-shaped building that we could put up. Interestingly, the sports hall, we talked to county at the time about them when they drew up this version 1 of the master plan. In using all the government numbers, I don't know, you can probably can't see that on the screen, but basically in all their studies of it, etc., it was deemed that the sports hall actually was fit for purpose and was big enough for us to use as is. So we were a little bit disappointed with that. At the time also, because of the development of the town, we were due to be gifted a little bit of land behind us, behind our fields, right next to the A11. We called it the Gladedale development. It was Gladedale at the time. I'm not sure what it's morphed into now. It's been sold a number of times. And so we thought, well, actually, can we put the sports centre there? So the governors decided with the 10 group at the time we were part of to do another feasibility study. Could we put a sports centre there? And could we, if we did that, could we put a theatre? Could we use the sports hall Paragon as a theatre? Again, not treading on the toes of Carl Hall, kill that room as well, because we just wanted it as another facility for the town, not in competition. So feasibility study went ahead. It was, as you can see, a pretty muddy field with drainage problems. When the developers sold it to us, it looked like a lovely athletics track with lots of rugby pitches on it. Soon became apparent they weren't going to do that, they were just going to give us a muddy field there anyway. So we commissioned company Lampro to find out what we could actually put on there. We were quite pleasantly surprised actually that it was quite big. We knew that because it was so close to the A11 that we didn't want rugby pitches put on there. I know what I was like when I was 14, and if you give me a rugby ball and the A11 was over there, I don't have a go. So we knew that if we were going to put anything on it, it needed to be fenced in or roofed, as in buildings. Cost of that was around about £12 million. It would have been a brilliant idea, but various meetings, loads of meetings since that time, now seeing that as unrealistic, because the way that we will get the money in is we'll get it through developers. And unless they can build 4,000 houses in a year and give us 12 million quid, it's pretty unrealistic. And so that we were thinking that we'd actually have to go back to our original plan to develop the sports hall as is, the playground and the infants field, to make it a bit more of a neater unit that we could do in phases. The idea became paramount. In terms of the ownership of the school, then, as I've highlighted, so 67 to 2014, we were part of the council. 2014, we chose to become an academy. That sort of kick-started the master plan number 1. We were part of what's called the 10 group, which was founded by City College, and we had various schools with us at the time. In 2018, I became the CEO of Norfolk Academies, which was part of this 10 group, and I decided it wasn't anything sinister. I mean, basically, you will know that City College developed into take over Eastern College, etc., etc. So they were looking very much at further education, and we wanted to really join a bigger family of schools. And so we chose in the end to join Sapientia Education Trust, which was founded by Wyndham College. So we've come back to being a very sort of area-based Sapientia Education Trust, which really is probably what it should be all the way along. So we are our sister schools now: Wyndham College, Old Park, Fakenham, Framlingham, and Stradbroke High are the secondary schools in that trust. So In terms of joining that trust, then we kick-started Master Plan version 2, which is still currently being drawn up. It does have the defined plan for the science block on the field though, and it does this time recognise sports provision as needing development, which is nice, but on the current sports hall site. But it does really focus on improving the academic provision, because the thing in terms of the way our funding works is that we can't use sport improvement funding for community facilities. So some of the frustrations really are, 4,000 houses being built has been mentioned a long time, and really the housing growth has slowed. So in terms of the way, as I said, that we get the money in, we're getting less money because the housing growth has slowed. If the link road goes in, then we'll be happy days because it will speed up again. We have completed, therefore, one of the 4 buildings that are coming. But as I say, we can't use school improvement funding for community facilities, sadly. We're dependent on developers' contributions, being built up, and then we can use it. But we will have to do it in phases. We are trying to get some joined up thinking between Bretland, Athol Town Council, and Norfolk Town Council, and the Trust. That's not been easy to achieve, as Phil has highlighted tonight. But it's important for us that we get our ducks in a row, because as soon as we start to develop the sports hall, it means our sixth form have to move out. We've got to put them somewhere, so we need to make sure that we develop the infant school to make sure that they can go in there. So there is this definite need for joined up thinking. So in terms of summary, really, we've done that bit. That's the bit at the front. One of the 4. We know that we've got. We know that we've got a definite plan in blue there for the science block on the field. So the next part, really, and this is where I'm saying we need to join up things between all of us, all the stakeholders, is to push this sports village area forward so that we can use it as a proper joint use agreement with the community, rather than just need to get it in the evening and weekends. Or we want to do it in the day as well. It can be done. Schools achieve it, and then also to look at what we're going to do in terms of this area, which is actually outside of our secure area. So it can be sixth form community, and it's right next to the Attleborough Enterprise Centre. So we've even looked at using maybe a part of it to enlarge the car park of the library, etc., etc. So if we get some joined up thinking between us all, we've got a great opportunity now for to develop the facilities for the youth and for the community in our area. So that's it from me. I don't take up too much time. I'll put questions on there, but I don't know when you're going to take questions.
We'll do the questions at the end of the agenda. With that, thanks very much now.
Okay.
And highlighting the point that I hope you're picking up at least on this already from those that participated in this, that there's so many things happening. It's good to actually give a broad perspective of the different projects and the need of the community to glue this together. We need the organisations, but it's the community behind those organisations to be part of this. So we have the joined up thinking that we, collectively get the best outcome with the available funds and resources that we have. So yeah, thank you very much for that. Okay. Be very patient. If you can bear with one more speaker, please. Starting to see a few glazed eyes out there. So refresh yourself for a moment, and then we'll have a bit more involvement with yourself. So there we go.
We're all right at the back.
Okay, Andrew.
Thank you very much. I will be brief, and don't worry if you're squinting at this. As much as anything, my age, but just remember I say the right things. So I'm Andrew Holsworth. I work with the Brecon Council. I'm the Assistant Director for Economy and Growth. So I'm sort of responsible for helping with the work that we do to grow business, skills, work in the planning context. So those bits of the council's activity. I was asked to come along today in the kind of spirit of partnership. We're doing a lot of work in this area. It's incredibly exciting. to talk about, to share some thoughts on potential growth opportunities. Obviously, to that, it's a very big question. It's the kind of thing that, because I'm in a bit of detail on this, I could talk for hours. I will not do that. I've attempted to kind of limit my enthusiasm to just focusing on three sort of key things that I think are interesting to reflect at the moment. So one, what is happening in the world around us, which is sort of shaping some opportunities we face. Two, what are some of the main priorities that we, sort of district council level, are thinking about and think should be important in the activity that we take forward. And then three, how do we ensure that we're not talking about stuff that things are actually going to be happening on the ground. So just to touch briefly on that question of change, because I think you mentioned the outset, it's been a difficult few years, and potentially with the cost of living challenges, the global insecurity, we probably face a degree of change and challenge moving forwards, which always makes planning and sort of responding a little tricky. It does mean, I think, from the way we look at the world, I think that there are quite a lot of opportunities, but also challenges that face Attleborough and Brecon as a whole. So one thing we are very conscious of is there have been some real structural changes to the world as a result of COVID particularly, but also things like Brexit and the way the world is changing anyway. The things that people prioritise in life, the way they want to live their life, the kind of facilities they want to access, have changed. We've seen remarkable increases in things like local house price growth, and we've seen some real changes in the kind of interest that business have in this part of the world. We know, obviously, in Attleborough, this is one of the highest growth areas in this part of the world, and with the housing delivery, which should now be accelerated again through Home Dignity, taking on phase one of the urban extension. Change is coming, and it will be significant. Should be positive, but it's important for us to be sort of thinking about that. We also know, particularly colleagues in my team are very aware that there are some amazing pockets of real industrial strength in this part of the world, and in Attleborough particularly. I'm thinking of areas like engineering, high-end manufacturing, parts of the food sector, parts of the agricultural sector. And we have UK leading businesses here, and there is an opportunity, we believe, to grow that. We know there are some challenges in that context, particularly around skills. Most businesses, one of their key challenges in terms of growth is the ability to attract the right talent to help them grow, but also the space too. Another sort of key change in the context, I think just worth reflecting on, is the way the government policy is addressing growth and growth opportunities has changed. So a little while ago, the government launched their new flagship policy around levelling up, which broadly is intended to make sure that growth is not just focused in a few parts of the country, particularly the capital, and it is intended to help empower local areas to take more of control of their destiny. So there are a number of real positives in that, and real opportunities, we think, from that. The kind of funding available to support local areas has changed. So there are some smaller sets of allocations that are going to be made at district level, and there are some significant sort of competition funding available through things like the Levelling Up Fund, which are there to be thoughtful for the areas that can make the best case for how they can help the country level up. That said, whilst those things are very positive changes, we are sort of acutely aware that it's not necessarily straightforward. Unfortunately, Attleborough and Brecon, and indeed most of the North, have been the highest priority in the national sense. So it means we will continue to have to fight hard for investment, particularly on national government infrastructure investment. All of which means, from an opportunity sense, we are acutely aware that to be competitive, places like Attleborough need good plans, coherent plans that are shared and celebrated and owned by all stakeholders and communities. And then finally, just in terms of changes, briefly to touch on. So Brecon as a council has also changed and is also changing. So we recently set out a new corporate plan. I think critically for that, it has set out the council is really doubling down on key priorities, one of which is thriving places. It is our commitment to growing the local economy, and we're putting in place some new resources in order to achieve that. it's already been mentioned a little earlier today, we're conscious that there's a lot of consultation going on about at the moment. One of those we are helping sponsor, it's not ours, but it is an independent work sponsor that we're one of the co-sponsors for, is called Future Wetlands. And that is, I know I've seen many faces in this room that we've already engaged with that, which we're very grateful for. The intention behind that work and that key piece of change is for us as a district authority to be able to understand absolutely what are the most important priorities in each of our 5 towns, what are those projects that are going to make the most difference, and give us the tools to fight for funding and to fight in the kind of competitive landscape we're looking at, and make sure that we are joined up in our approach. So because of that, I haven't seen the outcome of the reporting will be published, the consultants who are working on this will be publishing it next month. And I'm eagerly anticipating it, but that will help us start to answer some of the questions about what is most important here and what should we be putting our effort into. The other change that I guess it's worth mentioning, just I think sort of important in this context, is as the local planning authority, we are also engaged in an update by our local plan currently. So this is one of the tools, and it's probably one of the key tools that we have in our arsenal for informing growth and helping shape the way the district grows. And at the moment, there's a call for sites underway to try and identify those areas where the kinds of development might be viable, desirable in the future. So the world is changing, and there are lots of opportunities, and it is meaning that we should be working towards coherent plans. Because some of those plans are underway, I don't want to delve into lots of details about specific projects. I did just want to call out 3 things that I think are going to be particularly important for Attleborough, where we are going to have some ability as a district council to support, but are important for all of us, kind of whole family, public and private sector to get behind. So one of which is, we believe quite passionately that Attleborough represents and will represent kind of a model for what a market town 21st century could and should be, in terms of a place where people have kind of facilities, kind of amenities to live in the way we will live in the future. And so the changes that are going to come about through the city, one of the lead things we need to do is to ensure that the development of all those new houses is coherent and is joined up with the facilities offer, the quality of life offer, the connections offer, into old and new Attleborough. And I think it's positive that we have the kind of partnership basis for that. We've got excellent partners in people like England to kind of have a very good fighting chance of doing that. The second priority that I think should be shared amongst us is one that's already been alluded to, because it's very evident to those who work at this space, it is around increasing the availability and the quality of availability first, and then quality second of employment and employment opportunities. So in a Breckland context, one of our largest single allocations of land for employment is just a little bit down the road, Snetterton. And that is an allocation which has had the challenges that a lot of land in this part of the world has, in that we are constantly getting inquiries commercially for people who want to relocate and want to put space in. But the cost to service that land, the cost to develop it, the cost to get power to it, just prevents growth happening and jobs coming forward in the way that we would like. What we've been able to do a little down the road in Snetterton, and the photo behind me is just is the sort of cutting there, is work with UK Power Network and work with funders to find the gap funding to make the power infrastructure happen to enable the first phase of that site. What we want to see happen is that kind of experience, that working with local partners, unlocking sites happen closer and happen across the Attleborough space, and make sure that those sites, included, are connected, so that it is just down the road, but it should be an easy access to whether it's cycling or transport. And we should be able to sustain both some of the amazing businesses that are already local here that want to grow and need the space, but also attract others, particularly in those sectors I already mentioned. But we are not sort of precious about the kind of employment. It's more the kind of how it fits locally in the economy and the kind of support we can provide. And then the final kind of area of priority that I think will be a focus and will be a shared focus across all of the levels of public sector here is really about that connectivity piece. I know the neighbourhood plan and continued priorities locally have been around how can we make sure that we can connect easily point to point across the town, take full advantage of the things like having a railway asset, and think intelligently about what the role of a car is going to be moving forwards. Obviously, particularly as they become more electrified, but what that means in terms of what people need and what facilities we need. So that's a very quick answer through a few priorities, just to sort of touch on as a final piece. I'm very conscious that in my line of work, it's very easy to make plans, but the real judge of that and the work we do, coming here and doing presentations is really about how it happens and what actually happens on the ground. And I think there's a few things that I just wanted to call out in terms of how we anticipate this working and how we want it to work. In that, I bolded it on my notes, and that partnership is going to be key to this. It is very the way that the public sector is structured. No one partner really has all of the resources or the assets or the ownership to solve all of the problems and all of the opportunities that we see in a space like ours. So our ability to join up, cohesively plan, share priorities, share investment, both at a public and a private level, will be key, and it's sort of fundamental to the role of my team and the approach we are taking as a council. And I'm very, very pleased to be invited here. There are areas where Brecon Council is able to make investments, particularly when we see the solution we think we can solve. We are a small district council in the grand scheme of things, but over the last 12 months, for example, we've known as an enterprise gap in terms of the amount of new businesses starting up in this part of the world, and we're able to stand up a small startup scheme, and we've been delighted to see 50 new businesses created through that. We've been able to put on small events, and the recent food market that we announced just as a way of testing things and trying to nudge the market. We will continue to do some of those smaller things like that, and we'll look to make larger investments where we can make a case. More substantially, we think we're going to have a key role in kind of leading in large bits of investment. This part of the country has suffered. I moved from the West Midlands to come and work here, and if you look at the number of investment flow, both private, particularly public, into this part of the world compared to other parts of the country, I really think we deserve and have an opportunity to make real good of more. So that's a key priority for us. Within that, I think part of the trick will have to be for all of us is to pick some priorities. The difficulty is saying what you want is a great number of things that could happen in a place like that to make it even more vibrant and make opportunities even more powerful. But if we pick a few, we have quite a good chance of seeing them happen rather than strung out by trying to do too much. And part of that is just making sure that we have the right environment, which is, I mentioned the local plan because that's one of the things we can and will do to try and make sure the right backdrop is there. But one of the key commitments from the council in terms of having it's stripped down to 4 key priorities is to make sure that all officers are able to be thinking about whether we're in environmental services or HR, how can we be doing our bits to support the environment. So yeah, apologies, I've probably used longer than I should have, but it's a topic I can say a lot about. So thank you very much for the time being.
Thank you, Andrew. And just from a town's perspective and certainly a personal one, we're very appreciative of your efforts and Ian too at work. It's been good to see this partnership be a reality. So thank you very much for that.
Okay, well, if you're still with us and you've managed to make a few notes and you can think back to the first conversations that we've had, the discussions, the time is now yours to ask any questions. So please raise your hand if you want to, or make yourself known if you have any questions you'd like to give or ask of any of the panelists. Yes.
Apologies, Chair. I had a local
issue, which meant I was a minute late getting in. I have been
Sorry,
sat at the
Paul.
back all the way
We
through.
saw you, don't worry.
That's my 10 card over there. I don't know if I want to embarrass myself by walking over there. I will walk over there.
Yeah, please come to that.
Sorry, guys.
And thank you for attending. Paul. We do
That's
appreciate
right,
it. Thank you. So, any questions? You can be brave.
Go on then, someone's got
Go
to
on.
jump
Go on,
out.
Lou.
Question from Neil McShane, if that's okay. For those of us who worked on the neighbourhood plan for about 7 years, up to 2017, a lot of what you said about your early phase is still sort of ring true, because we saw those proposals being put forward. By 2017, when the small Victorian school was going to be closed and redeveloped, there was thoughts being mooted about using that particular school for skills training in small units to bridge the gap between sixth form and then full employment for hopefully local use. With the second tier educational trust, is that now not a likelihood to come about, or is that something that's still possible?
Yeah, it's absolutely still possible. It's still on the table. There've been no real plans drawn up for the use of the Olympic site yet, because of the, highlighting really the progress, I think, the momentum stalled a bit. So yeah, there are no plans drawn up, still on the table. I was hinting there again that it's quite close to the enterprise centre of the library. So, from my point of view, because it's outside the secure area, then I would like to see some sort of community use on that bit. We did hint at the time, as you quite like to say, that I think we even used the word sort of academy in the real sense, like Norwich City have an academy. Could we put companies' academies on there? The answer from the education point of view is that we, at the time, thought the government would bring on this thing called T levels, which was supposed to be vocational qualifications equivalent to A levels. And so we were thinking, actually, if T levels turn out, that we could deliver them in consultation with a company, or that company, then we would go for that. Subsequently, T levels we're pretty disappointed in, if we're honest, because they pretty much look like you'd need the infrastructure of City College to deliver them. So we went away from that. Our problem really is that to get that joined up thinking going on, we would need a qualification from the school's point of view that links to whatever business sector or economy sector you're going to go into. And there isn't that qualification yet, even in existence or even on the horizon. So, it's stalled from that point of view as well. Really. But certainly in terms of the usage of it, we're open to ideas. Again, a little bit of joined up thinking, we can come up with some good proposals, I think. But there's nothing actually laid down on paper yet.
And thank you. As chair of the Attleborough Heritage Group, obviously we would love those buildings to be incorporated within any plans rather than just demolished off the face of the earth.
And I think actually the way this is going to go, you'll get your wish, I think, because there are elements who I won't go into who would like to see the whole site demolished and rebuilt again. But that would take a considerable investment, over £5 million, I would think, and probably about 9 million to get the size of facilities that you've got from the old infant school. And I think we're going to have to do it in phases. So I don't think we've got any means to knock the whole thing down and rebuild. I can't give you a guarantee on that. But I certainly think because we're dependent on this sort of drip of the funding, get to a certain level, we need to move a bit of the sixth form in there. I think we will have to use the current site, I think, in favour and develop it.
Thank you. We'll watch development.
Yeah, as I say, I'm not going to stand here and give you any guarantee, but I think that's the most likely scenario.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Sue?
No, my general comment to everybody is communication. There's an assumption that everybody has Twitter, Facebook, and all forms of electronic communication, and that sometimes isn't true. So please be aware of how you communicate things out, because typical example, I spoke to Leslie, she didn't know tonight's meeting was on. That's our fault as a council. Somewhere along the line, we haven't got that communication quite right. We're relying on people having electronic communication and social media, and a lot of people don't. So please, all of you, bear that in mind when you try and get your message out.
Thanks, Sue. I think there's something that we have to be addressing as well. Roger.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you everyone for presenting being positive. I think your words as well, Mr. Mayor, very positive. So thank you for that. I just wanted to pick up from Andrew. Again, another positive, enthusiastic presentation. Thank you. It's nice to see the themes that you picked up on very similar to the neighbour plan. So when you talked about the local plan update, my immediate thought was, oh, great. So the local plan update will mirror what's in the neighbourhood plan. But I think consumption is always very dangerous. So how far does the local plan update recognise the neighbourhood plan?
So there's some more technical, complicated planning answers that I can get our director of planning to share with you, but it will be significantly informed by the work that's already there. It provides an opportunity to refresh some of the underlying policies, the stuff that works at a district level. But particularly those areas that have strong existing neighbourhood requirements, the intention is that will be a key part of forming what the development strategy is and our approach moving forward. So we believe that areas like AFRA with existing plans should be benefiting from this exercise rather than being a fundamental challenge.
Thank you.
Something we're going to do as a town council was that process is ongoing, which is about now, it's really starting, is we were going to review our neighbourhood plan and bring it up to speed a little bit on the areas that need to be brought to speed. So we get more synergy, partnership and reflection of the needs that are now here, but also ties closer with the local plan. As Andrew alluded to, if we pick key priorities and really focus on, there's a greater chance of delivery. And that allows us to work together to do that. So that's something the town council will be picking up now, shortly.
Yeah, I'm conscious of the employment element of that as well as.
Yeah, it is an area that we've had conversations about because it's a bit of a black hole with everything else that's happening. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Keith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Very good presentations. Very good. I just want to flag up for the community of Battleborough. As you know, we've got a new brush factory which has been shut for a number of years, and I've been dealing with that kind of plan through with the Lighthouse Charity, and they have purchased the property now, and I'm trying to arrange with the church leader, Rob, who will be helping them on, for the leader of the council, who hasn't come back to me yet, we've been a bit busy, and perhaps Andrew will come to have a site visit. They've got some big proposals for the town. And they thank them for my help and that, and he's happy to share the vision of what they want. You know, so we want them joined up thinking.
Absolutely.
But I know what they call the Lighthouse to do. They've got to start with a 600 seat auditorium. I mean, our part thing, It's good, and it's a town centre, and I think as well, we've got have a bridge over the railway, so the railway, and that can be a joined up thing with that.
It's coming to the right location there
Yes,
as well.
right location.
One of the things, this is where that synergy, that communication really helps deliver massively on those sort of areas. Michelle and I have met with the Lighthouse as well, so when you go to visit, you mention that we'd like to come to as well.
All right.
Yeah.
Because the more we join this up in our
Yeah.
conversation, remember we spoke to Homes England when they were talking about joining the old and the new town over the rail line, it was where to bring it in. And we knew that community centre was there, and we knew that the link into the town centre. So it all starts joining up, and the work that's done reflects on then the utility of something else that's happening. So it's a private venture, but we hope with public support as well.
The different options that they have done press release, have you seen the press release?
I have, yes.
Yeah. So,
But thank you, Keith.
Yeah.
Dave, we see them as a key part of this informal group of community,
yeah.
key stakeholders that we want to have.
Well,
They
yeah.
have been positive.
You know, they're walking into the town as well, when they come off Eden Lane as well, they kept access there. Breaking on that, that used to be, well, served the town for a lot of employees for a number of years. I mean, my younger sister, Linda, that's it, she started there when she left school, until they shut. She didn't want to run, you know, my mother's sister, and well, a lot of people. But anyway, so one step at a time.
No.
And we've got a new business opening up, which we're just waiting for open hours conditions, that's the down New Road, which has got the big screw fix centre. All right? So a lot of people are happy because they said they deal a lot with them, but it's well underway.
Thank you
They're
very
built
much for that
extension.
news. Saves me running into Nigel.
Yeah,
We've got to pick up something in emergency.
Yeah.
So that's great. Thank you. Okay.
That's another plus, you know.
It is, and it's the collection of these little pluses. I mean, every one of us, we're talking about initiatives that impact the community positively. And if we just join them up and work together cooperatively, it just has a bigger impact. It has a more visionary aspect to it. So we're not working in isolation. So absolutely, thank you for that. Anyone else? Anthony? Yes.
I was so pleased to have the report from our policeman. And so glad to hear about your desire to work with us all our different community bits and pieces. We understand the difficulties that you face because of staff shortages. It's a national issue. But one thing which I'm wondering, it might be possible to improve is communication. Little things can come up that one wants to find out. And as you said, you're limited. Sometimes you're walking in the street, and that's good if we come across you in Sainsbury's or wherever. But my experience in the past has been, oh dear, I'm going to have to, I'm assuming if I contact Wyndham, I'm going to have to wait 1, 2, possibly even longer before I can actually speak to anyone. And of course, the office is closed here and here as well. I was wondering if it's possible to improve the network of communication, because you're so important to keep law and order. That without law and order, businesses collapse, anxiety grows in the community. I'm just wondering, is there some way of improving these?
That's a very big question, and I thank you for your comments. So unfortunately, our means of communication, as you rightly say, is very electronic, very social media orientated, so much to the point we have a police officer who's our engagement officer. So we have a police officer who is an engagement class, as an engagement officer, the whole Brecon and Kingsley at the moment, where her role is to monitor social media, postings on social media, press releases, content events and such like. Unfortunately, we are pushed now to give out our email addresses happily, but again, that is electronic. Facebook, Twitter, and things like that. This is why, and I think not to, not obviously slightly biased, but Andy and Dave, they do these pop-up surveys. And yes, they have to be advertised, but they are advertised social media online. But we are open to suggestions. So every summer we can put a poster up, we'll happily put a poster up. Unfortunately, the way the police is working at the moment, it is very directed towards technology in terms of online reporting, emails, and things like that. Which, yes, I can understand the frustration from the community, but we have to almost try and make ourselves slightly more efficient, and that is done through emails, online reporting, than it is.
We may be able to assist.
But in terms of like posters and things like, or if there's any suggestions or any other formats of advertising which you guys could suggest to us, because we don't have all the answers, I can assure you of that.
Well, I think this is where sometimes we can do for ourselves something better, because you guys have pushed already. We were talking about this community, and a lot of these community groups are working with vulnerable, the people whose voices aren't heard as often as others, who have limited access to social media, the internet, emails, and so on and so forth. If we get this group working correctly, we can gain and gather that information together. And in our SNAP meetings that we have, and we've got 2 councillors who meet with our local police officers regularly as well, we can garner that information. We can bring in and condense that information and report it to them. So we can be the gathering service for that. That's where we can do for ourselves those things and enable and empower our local police to benefit from those efforts. So we're very close to being in a position where we can do that. Increasingly give you more information. Anyone else? Okay, going, is it? All right. Well, thank you very much for attending, and thank you very much for all the panel members this evening. It's been productive, it's been beneficial, but one thing it has demonstrated is the need for good communication. More than anything else, we need to work together, and we are committed to do so. So, thank you very much for all of your comments and participation, and we'll call the meeting to a close. Thank you. Thank you.